Lady lovers, we are now at the sixth and final part of my mature sapphics in film and TV series, and today we have 25 more. The series is by no means exhaustive, so feel free to keep adding more that you know about, but all in all, we've covered 96. That's quite a bit. Before we go any further, I wanted to make a correction on last week's video. I said that Between Two Women had an unhappy ending because I had such a distinct memory of being disappointed by its end, and I seem to remember the two women walking away from each other after saying they couldn't be together, but it seems I misremembered the entire ending. I went to rewatch it on Tubi, and it turns out they walked off together, and it's implied they get together. Although we don't see it, and I'm guessing that is why I was disappointed, because I'll be honest, I was kind of disappointed this time around too, that we barely got a glimmer of physical affection between them. I watched it about 15 years ago, right around the time where there was a fandom discourse on how sapphic ladies were not being allowed to show affection on screen, and I think I was a little bit fed up with that. So I must have conflated the ending. Thanks for those of you who let me know in the comments. On with the list. Let's start with Losing Chase, a 1996 made-for-TV movie where the great Dame Helen Mirren plays a woman, Chase, who has a mental breakdown. To help her convalesce, Elizabeth is brought to Martha's Vineyard, and while there is resistance to the help at first, making their relationship contentious, Elizabeth quickly becomes indispensable to Chase and feelings start to develop. From what I've gathered, they don't get a happy ending together. The story is more about Chase extricating herself out of a stifling, if wealthy life full of fake people. Of course, with Dame Helen Mirren at the helm, it's a movie I'm curious to see, and it so happens that I found a copy of the movie up on YouTube, so I've linked that in the description. A mi madre le gustan las mujeres is a 2002 Spanish movie about a classical pianist who introduces her three daughters to her younger lover, a woman. This goes down like a ton of bricks, and unable to accept that their heretofore straight mother is now coming out as a lesbian, they try to break up their mother's relationship in what seems to be a rather unconventional way. It seems they try to seduce the lover. It looks like a bit of a comedic romp, one you can check out because, like Losing Chase, the full movie is up on YouTube for you to peruse at your leisure. I have put a link in the description. Dólares de Arena, also known as Sand Dollars, is a 2014 movie about an older European woman, Anne, who takes as her lover a young Dominican woman, Noelle, who is struggling to make ends meet. While for Anne the feelings are real, for Noelle it is a matter of survival, a way for her to make money, illuminating themes of class inequality and exploitation. It appears to be a meditative kind of film with the Dominican Republic as a lush background in this quiet drama. So My Grandmother's a Lesbian is about a granddaughter, Eva, who comes to visit her grandmother only to find out she's in love with another woman, and what's more, they want to get married. This throws a spanner in her engagement to a conservative man in a conservative family. I started watching this movie years ago, but stopped because I got bored. It was more about the granddaughter than the sapphic ladies, and her story was pretty predictable. She was clearly going to leave her engagement for the guy she meets in the movie who happens to be her grandmother's girlfriend's grandson. But hey, you may really enjoy the film. Maja Ma is a movie about a devoted mother and wife, Pallavi, who has a rumor surface just as her son is getting engaged to threaten that union. That rumor? That she might have a thing for the ladies. While things seem to be falling apart around her, it makes her confront feelings she had set aside long ago as a teenager and to accept who she is. The fact that the fabulous Madhuri Dixit is playing the queer lead makes me feel all kinds of ways because, for those of you who don't know who she is one of the top-tier A-list Bollywood stars from the 80s and 90s, the it girl, revered not just for her acting but especially for her dancing. Basically, she is Bollywood royalty, and to have someone like her playing queer is huge. It's massive and I love it. Playing her childhood best friend is Simone Singh, who you may have seen in Four More Shots Please, which I talked about before because of the bisexual character Umang, but she's been working steadily in Bollywood for a long time. The film does focus a fair amount on the fallout of the rumor and less on the reconnection of the two women, so while we get flashbacks to what happened in their youths, the focus is more on Pallavi facing her sexuality and how her family and community deal with it. A recent TV show is Mary and George, where we find Julianne Moore once again gaying it up for us. She's made it onto this list a fair few times so far, and here she is again, this time playing a Countess of Buckingham who has moulded her son George to seduce King James I and become his lover. While she plots her way to power and money by any means necessary, she finds herself seeking the company of a prostitute who also has big ambitions. The story is based in fact, although I imagine it's not entirely historically accurate. Looks like an intriguing series. Another entry for 2024 is the German comedy What a Feeling, about a woman whose marriage ends after 20 years, and in her attempt to deal with it, she winds up at a lesbian bar where she meets a charming woman. When their paths cross again by chance, a romance begins, one that opens up a whole new world to her. It looks like a fun and light-hearted, heartwarming kind of film, and given how many of the entries on the series I've had to give wee warnings about, I suspect this will be a balm to the spirit. Also, I can't remember the last time I saw a comedy from Germany, so on the list it goes. It came out in German theatres around Easter. Hopefully it will get an online release soon. Sueños de Libertad is a Spanish telenovela that looks at the events that led to a man shooting his wife in 1958. On the show is a woman called Marta who owns a shop, and working in that shop is a young woman called Fina, and as they work together, they catch feelings. They begin a secret love affair, but given the time and how very illegal gay activity is, it's not exactly safe. I'm sure there are a lot more nuances to the story, but from the few clips I've watched, that's what I got. The pairing seems to have garnered some fans, so I'm sure you can find some edits of their stories on YouTube if you go searching. Entre Vías, also known as Wrong Side of the Track in English, is a Spanish series where a war veteran takes matters into his own hands when his granddaughter falls victim to drug dealers taking over his neighborhood. While both sapphic characters are part of Season 1, in Season 2 Amanda and Jimena cross paths when Jimena, a closeted gay who has chosen to ignore that part of herself and stay squarely in the closet, is going through a divorce. She finds herself coming across Amanda, the chief of police, when she is brought in for drunken and disorderly behavior. It leads to romance, but falters as Jimena struggles to accept her sexuality. The next one looks like a bit of fun. Elas por Elas, a Brazilian telenovela about a woman, Natalia, whose twin brother disappeared when she was a teenager under mysterious circumstances, and she's never been able to let it go, which has led to mental health breakdowns. Now, decades later, she is convinced that someone murdered him, and she's determined to find out who. One of her primary suspects is Carol, her brother's ex-girlfriend, and as a result of her investigation, she comes into contact with Carol quite a few times, and they grow close, leading to feelings. There is no doubt many more plot lines in the show, but that's what I could gather about the gay thread. It looks like it's a blend of mystery, drama, and comedy, and if anyone knows where this can be accessed or knows of an edit of Natalia and Carol, let me know in the comments. Die Liebwächterin is a movie about a politician, Mona, who investigates the tobacco industry. She is assigned a bodyguard, Johanna, to protect her, but this job puts Johanna's son in danger. While this German made-for-TV film is a crime thriller, it also appears to have a love story between Moana and Johanna, and the entire film has been uploaded to YouTube, albeit in very low quality and without subtitles, so this is for those who understand German only. I have linked it in the description. When I found out that Elle Macpherson played gay, I have to admit I was intrigued. A Girl Thing is a 2001 miniseries that looks at a therapist who is dealing with 4 different stories from 4 of her patients. One of the stories is gay. When Lauren goes on a double-blind date, she finds herself more interested in the other woman, Casey, than either of the men. It's also mutual. Despite pushback from Lauren's friend, she decides to do something she never does, take a chance. The story is up online in low quality. I've linked it for you in the description, but just a warning, the ending is disappointing. Under the Bridge is a new Hulu show set in Victoria, BC in Canada that looks at the investigation into a 14-year-old girl who went to a party and never came home. Cam is the lead investigator on this when a woman from her past shows up wanting to write a book. And from what I can tell, the past they shared was romantic and that romance is rekindled. Lily Gladstone is in the lead role, which just sign me up, I'm there. She's not only part native, which is so rare to see, but she's also a sapphic, and her career has been taking off something fierce with her role in Killers of the Flower Moon. You may recognize her from when she played Kristen Stewart's love interest in Certain Woman some years ago. In addition, if you enjoyed The Good Wife and loved Kalinda, you'll be as delighted as I am to see that Archie Punjabi has a role on the show. This totally makes it another for my list. It's currently up to episode 5 of 8, so this one is hot off the press. A show that has just finished airing, which is also a crime drama with a native lead, is High Country, set in the Victorian High Country of Australia, where Andrea Whitford is transferred to take over from the retiring sergeant with her wife and kid. She is immediately busy investigating a number of missing people in the area, while her wife finally begins to paint again, forcing her to revisit the tragedy that led her to stopping. With both women so busy, it puts a strain on their relationship. Leah Purcell, who you may recognise from other Australian sapphic shows shows like Wentworth and Janet King, is in the lead as a part Aboriginal sergeant, and her wife is played by a fave of mine, New Zealander and sapphic Sarah Wiseman. I must go and catch up on the last couple of episodes. Let me cover the next few briefly. The Secret Diaries of Miss Anne Lister is a film that looks at Anne Lister's life and her search for a wife. It covers a different period of time to the show Gentleman Jack. Queens was a one-season and cancelled series that follows 4 women who were in a band together in their youths and decided to reunite. One of them, Jill, is a closeted lesbian deep in the church. The Fosters, a series that follows 2 kids fostered by a lesbian couple and their adopted and biological children. The Wheel of Time, an adaptation of a book where Moiraine Damodred, on a quest to find the Dragon Reborn, has a secret, a forbidden love with the most powerful woman in the Aes Sedai order of women who can channel the One Power. Star Trek Picard, where Seven of Nine, who you may remember from Star Trek Voyager, is now older, jaded, and it turns out bisexual. She has a small love story with Raffi. Le Jupon Rouge, also known as Manuela's Loves, is the 1987 story of 3 women of different ages and backgrounds who are caught up in a love story. Reviews seem tepid and I couldn't find much else about the movie. Bloomington, the beloved teacher and student forbidden love film. When an ex-child star arrives at a school, a romance with her teacher soon develops. Loving Annabelle, the other beloved teacher and student forbidden love story. A rebellious teen who arrives at a boarding school starts a romance with her teacher. Bessie, the renowned blues singer who had a relationship with men and women. The sapphic part is brief. Away, about a group of astronauts heading on the first manned mission to Mars. Lou may have left behind a husband and child, but during the preparation for her journey, she found herself falling in love with a woman. And finally, Mrs. Dalloway, a 1997 movie of the Virginia Woolf novel. I get the feeling this one is more about sapphic undercurrents between Clarissa Dalloway and her friend from her youth, Sally, than any overt sapphic activity, which would be unsurprising given the novel was written in 1925 when homosexuality was illegal and seen as a mental illness. I could be wrong, but hence its brief mention. I do have a link for the movie in the description, so be sure to check it out. That's it for the series. If there are other videos that you would like to see, let me know in the comments. And until next time, lady lovers.